All right, welcome everybody. Today is our third session of Applique School, and we are also here on Sewing in Slippers with Sue. So if you're used to coming to Sewing in Slippers with Sue at 11 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, I want to welcome you as well and let you know what we are doing. Well, we had to cancel the third day of Applique School, and the topic of Applique School for the third day is Quilt First, Applique After, and we're going to explore glue applique methods. I've got a little presentation for you, and we're going to do a demo. And we're going to talk about all those three types of applique that we've covered in Applique School so far: Fusible, Rotary Cut Applique, Hand Applique, and today Glue Applique. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each and help you decide which applique method is best for you and for your project. I want to welcome everybody new here to Sewing in Slippers with Sue. I did a little combination. I am running out of time. I've got my mom visiting for 2.5 weeks. That's why I had applique school last week before mom came. So it would be all done. My work would be finished before my mom came and I could spend all my time with her. Well, I have my sister coming to spend the day with my mom today, so I can spend my day with you. I had to cancel the last day of applique school because my sweet little 5-year-old puppy dog had kidney failure and we had to put him down on Thursday. I was heartbroken and there was no way that I could continue with applique school. So bear with me. I'm still emotional about it. I loved my little puppy and it was so hard to say goodbye. But I didn't want to leave you short. I didn't want to leave you with two applique methods and wondering about this third glue applique method where you can quilt your quilts first and do applique after. So I wanted to reschedule that. And with my limited time this week with my mom in town, I decided to combine Applique School Session 3 and our Sewing in Slippers with Sue. So for those of you that are here for Applique School, I want to encourage you to come to Sewing in Slippers with Sue every Tuesday at 11. And I say every Tuesday, there are exceptions. Next Tuesday, I need to bring my mom to see her 89-year-old sister-in-law on Martha's Vineyard. So I won't be here next Tuesday, but generally on Tuesdays, I'm here for Sewing in Slippers with Sue. And we'll pick a project to work on together. I'll give you some tips and tricks for applique. I may have a special guest. There may be a member spotlight where we spotlight somebody in our Ahead of the Curve membership. So there's lots of different topics. It's a fun time to just get together for an hour every week and talk about applique topics. Now, here in the comment section, you can absolutely leave me comments. Oh, Mary says we will miss Gilligan joining us during class. Yeah, Mary, thank you so much. Gilligan was my little companion, and he used to lay down on the floor here every day that I taught. So, yeah, we're certainly going to miss him, aren't we? I love that you are putting in your location in the comments. Where are you coming from? Also, if you did not give StreamYard permission to use your name, put in your name next to your comment. That way I'll know who's here. So I see Terry and Mary and Ellie, Laura. I see a lot of people that already have their names posted, but there are, oh, Karen, welcome. Margaret Smith, excellent. If you're not going to be able to tell. But if you didn't give permission, StreamYard permission to use your name, type in your name next to your comments. That will help me to call you by name. All right, so welcome to day 3 of Applique School. Even if you weren't here for Applique School and you came for Sewing in Slippers, I think that you're going to benefit from the information that I'm going to give our newest people, our newest recruits into the Sue Helen design world. And I am sharing my love of applique with all of you. So welcome to Applique School and to Sewing in Slippers. I do indeed have my slippers on. fun because I sew in my slippers here in my sewing room, which is in the basement. And I want you to be comfortable. I'm going to be comfortable here as I work with you. So I have a presentation to show you today, and then we'll get right into the demonstration. But I want to explain why I would use glue applique, which is a very unusual form of applique that most people are not familiar with. So let me talk about glue applique and why we might use it, and let's help you fall in love with applique all together. So let me proceed with my slideshow for just a minute. We have had time this week to do some fusible rotary cut applique, and that's my specialty. That's what I love to do. We also had the opportunity to cover hand applique and some quicker techniques by using a Hera marker for our hand applique. I don't know about you, but I don't do hand applique very often. But when I do use hand applique, that Hera marker makes it a lot easier to turn under that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So whether you're doing straight lines or you're doing curves, the curve tools can help you edge those curves with a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance that you can turn under easily. So if you missed either of those 2 sessions, if you signed up for Applique School, I'll be sending out an email probably tomorrow. Let's see how things go. Probably tomorrow with all 3 sessions, the videos for all 3 sessions, so you can watch them. Now today we're going to explore quilt first, applique after. Excuse me, that makes quilts that are super fast. They are fun to make and they're so easy to give away because you didn't put a whole lot of time and energy into those quilts. Even though they're absolutely beautiful, nobody's going to know that you took some shortcuts on these quilts, but they're perfect for baby quilts, charity quilts, comfort quilts that you're giving away to somebody in the hospital. You want to get them done quickly. So let me talk a little bit about quilt first and applique after. But first, I'm not sure I introduced myself. I am Sue Pelland, and I am your Rotary Cut Applique teacher. That's what I specialize in. I also love Quilt As You Go, and I do a lot of Quilt As You Go projects now where I quilt the fabric first, then I applique, and then I might assemble those quilted blocks. I love to be your applique mentor and your creative consultant. So I like to help you get so confident with your applique that you want to start designing your own applique blocks and applique quilts. And that's how I can become your applique mentor and your creative consultant by helping you reach those goals. Oh, good morning, Elaine. Nice to see you. And we've got Sue Smith, Carolyn Fox, Vicki Reich, Cindy Bridges. Welcome, everybody. I hope I'm pronouncing your names right. One of the methods that I teach inside the membership is quilt first, applique after. I didn't pull this quilt out of my storeroom, but each of these hearts and the flowers, the centers of the flowers and the stems, even those flower petals at the bottom of the quilt, all of those applique elements were added after the quilting. So on this quilt that you see on the screen, we've quilted that gray quilt with the red cornerstones and the gray sashing. There was no applique on this quilt when it went to the professional machine quilter. You might be able to see that there's an edge-to-edge design on this quilt. Think of this quilt with no applique on it. It's just gray with those red cornerstones and the red highlight border. Everything else is just gray. We quilted that edge to edge with a leafy design. And then when I got it home from the quilter, I added the applique hearts, flower petals, flower centers, and the stems, and those flower petals on the bottom as well. So there's some advantages to that. So let's talk about why we would quilt our quilts first and then applique after. Well, Rotary Cut Applique really helped me make that quilt, and it helps make this method super, super fast. When I'm cutting fabrics for these quilts, I don't necessarily fuse my fabric. That's where the glue applique comes in. And let me tell you why. When we quilt our quilts first, and then we're going to fuse on top of that quilted quilt, you're going to see the texture of the quilting coming through the applique. If you fuse it down, it's going to fuse right down into the grooves and texture of that quilting. So that might be a good thing, and it might not be a good thing. It depends on your aesthetic, right? You might want to see the texture of the quilting under your applique, because then it kind of looks like it was quilted after, even though it's fused down to the quilting. You might not want to see that. You might want your applique to be puffy and the rest of the quilt to be quilted. So let's talk about when you would want to use glue applique and when you would want to use fusible applique if you're quilting first and appliquing after. Now, the biggest reason why I quilt first and applique after is because I want to make quick quilts, comfort quilts, charity quilts, quick gifts. I can have a baby quilt already, and it can be all quilted, bound, and everything. Then the day the baby's born, I could put the baby's name on it. I could put a little pink heart or a blue heart, depending on if it's a boy or a girl. So in other words, I can have a quilt that's all ready to go, and I can embellish it to personalize it and have that ready while the baby's still in the hospital. So those are some times when I would do quilt first and applique after. Okay. When I don't want to do custom quilting, this quilt I quilted myself, and I did the applique first and the quilting after. So you can imagine I had to quilt around that whole wreath of holly leaves and berries. I had to quilt around all of those design elements. If I had made this quilt first and did all my quilting, I could have gone over the whole thing with the quilting and added that wreath and the word season's greetings after. That would have been a lot easier to quilt. It wouldn't have had to be custom that way. I can do edge to edge quilting, and then I can add the applique elements afterwards. When you have an applique quilt, you can do edge to edge quilting, but that quilting is going to go over your applique design. You may or may not like that look. If you don't want the quilting to go over the applique design, you'll have to do custom quilting, either by yourself or you're going to pay for custom quilting from your machine quilter, your long arm quilter. So these are times when if you want to have a less expensive way to quilt and do edge to edge quilting, you can add the applique after an edge to edge design and still get a beautiful quilt at a fraction of the cost of custom quilting that quilt. Now, even if I'm quilting it myself, it's easier to go over that whole background and then applique after. So that's another reason why I would use this method. When my applique elements are very small or very thin, I don't mind using fused fabrics. This quilt is Desert Flowers. The flowers are made from leftover fused pieces from the Hope's Diamond workshop. So we make this beautiful Hope's Diamond quilt. It's the one that baby was sleeping on in a previous slide. You might have seen it. When I make Hope's Diamond, I end up with these thin strips of fused fabric left over. So when I made this quilt, I did a simple strippy quilt, that 1900 quilt or lasagna quilt or whatever you want to call that strippy quilt. And then other people call it a jelly roll race, right? Okay, so you do the jelly roll race quilt, you quilt it with an overall design, and then you can add those thin applique elements that are fused. Now that fusible is going to stick right down into the quilted areas, and that's perfectly fine on a nice thin little shape like that. You don't even notice it. But if you wanted to put a big heart on that quilt, you know, this big old shape, and it's going to stick down into the texture of the quilting, you might not like that look. Okay, so it's demo time. Let me turn my camera down to my demo station. Give me a moment. I had a different way to do this and it didn't work. So I'm going to switch this camera down to my demo camera. Then I'm going to stop the share. Stop screen share. Okay, good. So now you're seeing my demo station full size. Mary Lou, welcome. Excellent. Okay, good. So as I said, if you want to add something like a big old heart to your quilted first, applique after quilt, then the quilting is going to show when you fuse these applique elements down. If you don't want the quilting to show, that's when we're going to use the glue applique method. So I have two different types of glue that I can use for the glue applique method. The quilt based it, the Roxanne glue based it. I use this all the time. This is my go-to glue. When I am stitching my applique quilts, and just let me take my clamshell border here that I'm working on for this afternoon's class. I haven't stitched this edge yet, and I noticed that the tip of this clamshell is coming up. So I can try to get that down with my hot iron, and my iron's not hot yet. So I can try to fuse that down with my hot iron, but it's possible that maybe I didn't get fusible on that part of the fabric. Maybe I missed a spot when I fused. So I'm able to use the Roxanne glue based it. It's got a very fine tip. So I can just put a little spot of glue under that tip, and I can glue that down. And now this row of clamshells is ready for stitching. Now these clamshells were fused. That was just one little area that didn't fuse properly. I can also heat that glue in order to dry it more quickly. And even if I've heated that glue, this glue is washable. Okay, so this glue is going to wash out. Now, the second type of glue that I have is called liquid thread. Now, I'm going to take a little heart pin cushion that I have here. I've added a little water to one side, and I'm going to take my liquid glue. Let's see. And I'm going to squirt out a little bit of liquid glue on that other side. Yeah, let's see. So this liquid glue is a liquid fusible. Okay, this is a totally different product than the Roxanne glue based it. This is a fusible web in a powder form that's mixed with some type of emulsifier. It might just be water, I'm not sure. So you want to shake it up, and then you can add that to a container. And I am going to water this down. I'm going to water it down by about half. So I'm going to take this water over here and pour it in, and then I'm going to mix those two together with my little paintbrush. So let's just mix that all up. Now you can use the glue straight out of the bottle, but Elaine found this product. Oops, sorry. I guess I should have turned my phone off. So sorry about that. Let me get that off. Okay. So my friend Elaine, who's one of our Ahead of the Curve members, she told me about this glue. She took a workshop and used this glue for an applique quilt and really fell in love with it. So she told me about it, and that's how I started doing this glue applique. Well, I used to do it with the Roxanne glue based it, but that's how I started using this glue for this type of project. So now I've got my glue mixed up, half and half with water, so you can extend that glue. So one of the pros of the glue applique, super inexpensive because you can water down that glue, and the whole glue bottle only costs about $6 or $7. And you can use this in place of Fusible, which is $3 a yard. So the Fusible can be much more expensive than the liquid glue. So this one, if I'm just touching up the applique, if there's a little area that won't stick down, I will use the Roxanne glue based it. But if I want to do full glue applique, like on a heart like this, I'm going to use the liquid glue. So let's make a piece that looks like this. Let's cut a heart and add it to a pre-appliqued piece of fabric. Oh, here is that Hope's Diamond bonus quilts. So these little pieces of fabric came from the Hope's Diamond quilt, and they were already fused. So in this case, I didn't use the glue at all. I just used the fusible applique. But you can see that that fusible sticks into the quilting, and you might not like the texture or the look of that quilt. So we're going to choose a shape, and I'm going to choose a heart shape. So I'm going to use my hearts and more tools, and I'm going to cut out some fabric that is not fused. This is just regular batik fabric. I didn't fuse it at all. I'm going to make a heart with this by folding my fabric over, and I'm going to cut my heart this way. So let me get my 28mm rotary cutter. I'm going to put the solid line here that has my 90 on the fold, the solid line on the edge of the fabric, so I can cut out a beautiful, consistent heart shape every time with my rotary cutter. So if I want to fuse this heart shape onto a piece of fabric that is already quilted. So here's a quilted background. Let's see, do I like it on this side or do I like it on this side? I think I'll do it on the plain side so you can see it a little bit easier. Now you could use this method for a label for your quilt. You could write all of your words on here, but I'm going to use this just as in applique. And I'm going to do half of this applique with my Roxanne glue basted. I'm just going to put dots of glue right around the edge of this heart. Now those dots of glue have a little bit of space in between them, so you can rub it to make one continuous line, but you realize that it's a little bit messy and it's a little bit hard to get every little bit of this applique down. When I use the liquid glue, I'm going to use my pressing sheet. I wrapped a piece of plywood with a pressing sheet so that I always have something that I can work on with fusibles or with this fusible glue. So I'm just going to paint that fusible glue right up to the edge of that applique. Yeah, a little bit messy. You do have to keep your applique in one place. You don't want this applique to move around because then it's going to pick up the glue around here on the pretty side of the fabric. So you don't want to do that. So you're just going to rub that glue on the outside edge. And because you're brushing it, you can get it all the way to the edge. So the liquid glue using the brush is a little easier to apply all the way around the edge of your applique. It's a little bit easier than the Roxanne glue basted. But what you can see happening is the water that you've included in there, even the water that's already in the glue, even if you didn't water it down, it's going to saturate the fabric, right? So you can see that around the edge of the fabric, it's wet. And then we're going to take that fabric, we're going to take that glued piece and we're going to apply that to our quilt. Now, with the loose glue here, the Roxanne glue basted, I have to be really careful where I place that down, right? It's definitely not repositionable because that glue is going to get on my background. So you have to be very careful when you place this. You're just going to drop it down and you want it to stay where you put it. Otherwise, the glue is going to get pretty messy. This side over here, the glue is saturated, so it's not coming off on the background, so it's easier to place it. So between the Roxanne glue basted and this glue, so far I like this glue better. I can get it all the way to the edge, which is going to make that edge more secure for stitching, and it's not going to get off on the background. But look, this is all saturated. What's going to happen with that color when I fuse it. So I'm going to fuse this down both sides because you can you can iron both sides. You can iron that glue. And look what's happening. The water is evaporating. The glue is drying. And my color is right back to normal. There is no edge over here that looks different on the fabric. So it's not showing any longer now that I've made all that water evaporate. So that's a good thing. So if this were fused with Misty Fuse, the entire heart would be ironed down. Here, only the edge is fused. Here with the Roxanne glue based it, and here with the liquid thread. So let's take a look. If I'm going to stitch this applique with a blanket stitch, that's going to go down and across, down and across, down and across. We want this edge to be really secure. And here I'm using my hero marker to try to lift up that edge, and look at that. It is so secure because I brushed that Fusible all the way to the edge of my patches. Over here where I use the Roxanne glue based it, is that edge secure? No, look at that. My hero marker is going right up under that edge because I didn't get all the way to the edges. So as I'm doing my blanket stitch, it's going to be not quite as secure. However, it's going to be good enough, isn't it? Because when I do my blanket stitch, it's the stitching that actually holds that applique down. That glue is just a temporary adhesive. So even though I can get my hero marker up under there, I can lift up this patch, I'm going to do a pretty good job of blanket stitching this. However, if those edges tend to fray, they're going to fray more here than they are over here with the glue. So the fraying is more what I'm concerned about with the Roxanne glue based it. The liquid thread does a better job, as does the Misty Fuse, because the Misty Fuse would be out all the way to the edge as well. So why use a liquid thread over the Misty Fuse? Well, the center of this heart is loose. It is not fused down to the quilted piece. So you don't see the quilting under there as you would if this were a fully fused heart. Okay, so this method works beautifully in certain circumstances. So let me come back to you. Let me come back over here. I'm going to go back to my camera so you can see me. Give me a minute here. It's a little different than when I do it on Zoom. Zoom is much easier to switch cameras. Okay, good. And then I'm going to go back to those slides because I want to do that comparison between all three methods. So let's see, present, share screen. There it is. Okay, good. Okay, that is helpful. I'd want to be able to paint one day and then iron another. Absolutely, you can do that. The glue will just turn into a powder. Now, Elaine may have more experience with this. I found that when I let my paintbrush dry, I let it dry overnight. When I flick that paintbrush, it's just powder. So once the liquid is gone, all you have is the powder Fusible. I'm not sure how well that's going to hold onto your fabric and if it's going to flake off if you don't press it right away. Elaine, please comment on that if you have another opinion about that. Okay? All right. I'm going to go back to the presentation because we finished our demo and now I want to talk to you about the pros and cons. So when you signed up for Applique School, you got this applique technique pros and cons list. And I want to go through that with you right now. Okay, so all the three methods that we did, our first day was Fusible Applique, our second day was Hand Applique, and our third day today is Glue Applique. So what are the pros and cons of these different styles? Well, under Fusible, it doesn't take much time to do Fusible Applique. So that's definitely in the pro category, right? You have a shorter learning curve for using that Fusible because it's so easy. You iron on your Fusible, you cut your shapes, you fuse and stitch. So simple, right? There's less hand fatigue when you're sewing Fusible Applique because it's all done by machine. So it's definitely less hand fatigue than hand applique. And there's less hand fatigue in the cutting stage because we're going to cut with our rotary cutter instead of with our scissors. So if you have problems with your hands, Fusible Applique, great, great way to go. Okay. The result is super soft if you use Misty Fuse, but there's other fusibles out there that will make your fabric stiff. So if you're going to do Fusible, I definitely recommend the Misty Fuse. That's the only fusible I use. Now, this Fusible applique technique shows off your stitching skills. So if you're a really good machine stitcher, that's going to show off your skills. If you're a really poor machine stitcher, this might not be the method for you because you need to be able to follow the outlines of those shapes. However, practice makes perfect, right? The more you do it, the easier it gets. It is very easy. It's just that maybe if your eyesight isn't good, you're going to need to use a magnifying glass. I use a magnifying glass all the time, and that gives me really accurate stitching around my applique. So what are the negatives? What are the cons to Fusible Applique? Well, your edges are raw edges, right? So hand applique, you're turning under your edge, so there's no fraying whatsoever. But I take care of those raw edges by doing the blanket stitch. And it's beautiful, and it is great quality, and it stands up to washing. One of the questions I always get is about washing, and I have a quilt out here that I think I can show you that's been washed many times. So let me talk about that later. Let's go through the rest of the cons. When I say limited shapes under the cons, that's not for Fusible Applique. That's for Rotary Cut Applique. Now, yes, there are limited shapes that you can cut with my tools, but when you see my quilts, like the one behind me, there are so many shapes in those quilts, and I use my rotary cutter for everything. Now, if there's a shape that you want to cut and you can't rotary cut it, you can absolutely trace and cut with scissors occasional shapes. But when you can cut 95% of your applique shapes with your rotary cutter and my tools, it makes it so quick and easy. So that limited shapes really isn't limited. It's only limited when you're rotary cutting your shapes. Okay. Now, Fusible Applique is less soft than hand applique. It's still soft, but it's less soft than hand applique. You're going to feel that Fusible a little bit. Even with the Misty Fuse, you're still going to feel it a little bit. And lower perceived quality. That is changing. My quilts are going to shows and they're being accepted at national shows. I've got a quilt going to AQS in Grand Rapids, and it is a semi-finalist. So the judges are respecting raw edge Fusible applique quilts. They want to see it up close and see how well I did with my applique. They want to make sure those raw edges aren't fraying. They want to see what quality I did for my rotary cut applique. So when I send that quilt in, they're going to inspect it up close. Now, I won a national show with this very quilt. So I know that the judges now respect raw edge applique. I was shocked, but there was a quilt that came in second that was hand applique. Just goes to show you, is it a lower perceived quality? Some people perceive it to be a lower quality, but in my world, if you do things beautifully, if you do top quality work, I don't care if it's hand applique, Fusible applique, glue applique, if you do it well, it is respected. So that's been my experience in the show world. Okay. So for hand applique, obviously the pros of hand applique are you're turning under that edge. So they would perceive that to be the highest quality possible as a turned under edge, right? So that's definitely a positive. It really shows your handwork skills. So if you're really good at handwork and you want to show off your handwork skills, maybe hand applique is the way to go for you. I'm not particularly good with my handwork skills because my eyes are going. I can't see that detail work without my big old magnifying glass. And I'd rather use my magnifying glass in front of the sewing machine instead of sitting in front of the TV or, doing handwork. I don't need as good lighting, and my big magnifying glass has a light on it, but the handwork to me is really, really tedious and it's hard on my eyes. I just don't do much handwork anymore. But if you are really good at handwork, it's going to really show that off. Now, it is the softest method possible because there's no fusible, no glue, no nothing that's going to make that fabric stiffer. So it's definitely the softest. The highest perceived quality, that depends on who you're talking to. If somebody really loves fusible applique and those judges are out there judging fusible applique neck and neck with hand applique, whose perception, right? So you have to take that with a grain of salt. Some people value hand applique more than fusible applique. Personally, I do because it is a method that I learned when I was a kid. It's the old-fashioned method. I love hand applique, but I can't get it done. I just can't do it anymore. There are unlimited design choices with hand applique. However, there are things I can do with fusible applique that I cannot do with hand applique, like long, narrow points on my S-shaped curves, my lemon-shaped leaves. When those points are long and narrow, that's hard to do with hand applique. Tiny little circles, hard to do with hand applique, much easier to do with fusible applique. One of the real reasons why people love hand applique is because it's portable, right? They can take it with them anywhere. So that's a real pro. Now, the cons, it takes a lot more time to do hand applique. It's harder to cut your hand applique shapes accurately because you're cutting one at a time with scissors instead of 12 at a time with a rotary cutter and a tool that keeps all your shapes the same size. It requires a higher skill level. It's going to take way more practice to get good at hand applique than it is to get good at machine applique. And it requires some hand dexterity for cutting and for stitching. So if you have problems with your hands, arthritis, anything like that, choose fusible. It's just going to be so much gentler on your hands. Now, glue applique, let's look at the pros of glue applique. And I want to say I hardly ever use glue applique, but there are times when it makes sense, okay? It's fast. It's absolutely fast. It's not as fast as fusible, because once I put on the fusible on a large piece of fabric, I can cut out hundreds of shapes from that fabric. The glue I have to apply to every single shape with that paintbrush. Takes some time, okay? So it's not as fast as a fusible, but it's still pretty fast. You have unlimited shapes because no matter what you can cut with your scissors, you can glue down. It is soft because you're only gluing down the edges. And even with that glued edge, that product is super soft. The powder, I would venture to say it's even softer than Misty Fuse. Okay, that powder, really, there's nothing to it, and it holds very well. It's really inexpensive, right? It's much less cost than the fusible. And you can quilt first and applique after, and it doesn't give you that texture that the fusible applique does. So what are the cons? Well, those raw edges once again, but if you handle them well, it's not really a negative. Okay. Lower perceived quality. I bet you if you told a judge you were gluing your applique, they would poo-poo that. They wouldn't like that at all. Would they be able to tell in a finished quilt? I don't think so. It's just raw edge applique, a different way of doing it. So don't tell anybody you're using glue, and I think you're going to be all set on that quality issue. It's more difficult to stitch cleanly, particularly if you don't go all the way to the edge with the powdered, the liquid thread. If you're using the Roxanne glue based it and putting the dots on, it's harder to get that right to the edge where you're not going to get any fraying. Okay, that means it's going to be harder to stitch cleanly because you might get some fraying on the edges. So it frays much more than regular fusible applique. unless you take the time to go all the way to the edges with that paintbrush. That kind of makes a mess, right? So it requires a little bit more skill to stitch that cleanly, and the glue can be messy. So there you have it. We have Fusible applique, hand applique, and glue applique, and you have that checklist. Now, there are times when you want all three of those applique methods in your toolbox. You want to pull out the one out of your backpack that's going to work for the certain situation that you're in. So there are times when I do Fusible, there are times, rare times when I do hand applique, and even more rare times when I do glue applique. Fusible applique is my go-to. That's what I spend most of my time on. So I want to know, is 2023 your year of applique? Are you determined that you are going to become an appliquer and you're going to do it over the next 6 months? Well, I hope that you have that as a goal, or think about making that your goal in the near future, because everyone can applique. Everyone can applique my way because it's so easy. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. You can wish all you want that you could applique, but unless you make a plan, you're not going to reach that goal, and you're certainly not going to reach it in the next 6 months. So I want to let you know that our Ahead of the Curve membership is a plan to get you the results you want. I have a plan made up for you. I have a step-by-step plan for you to follow so that applique can be your go-to method. Fusible Rotary Cut Applique can be your go-to method for your applique quilts. So here is our step-by-step plan for learning how to use the Leaves Galore tools. Each one of these circles is a lesson that's in our membership. So you're going to learn all of these different shapes that are in the leaves by doing all of the lessons that are in the circles. So this is our step-by-step plan for our Leaves Galore tools. Then we have a step-by-step plan for learning how to use the Hearts and More templates. So between these two, there are 16 weeks or 16 sessions of technique videos. Now, you could do one session in the morning and one session in the afternoon. You can speed up this whole process. It's going to take as long as you want it to take, depending on how much time you have to practice these shapes. But this plan right here does not include any projects. So it's a no UFO plan. You're not going to start a project for each shape. You're simply going to follow the instructions and learn how to cut, fuse, and stitch each shape. Okay? Then there are people who want those workshops. What good is it to learn how to do all this beautiful applique and not have anything to show for it? So our membership in Ahead of the Curve gives you access to a library of recorded workshops. In our silver leaf level, there are 2 recorded workshops. In our gold leaf level, there are 8 recorded workshops. And in our platinum leaf level, there are 30 recorded workshops and growing. Anytime I have a workshop that I really enjoy teaching and the students love the result, we will put it in the platinum level program. So the silver leaf level is $29 per month. The gold leaf level is $49 per month, and the platinum leaf level is $69 per month. You get access to the recorded workshops, and in the gold and platinum leaf level, you also get access to live workshops. Now, the on-demand workshops, those recorded workshops that we just talked about, 2 for silver, 8 for gold, 30 and growing for platinum. Those are videos that you can watch anytime you want to. You can rewind them, you can pause them, you can mute me if you want to. You can make these projects at your own pace. Drunkard's Path, perfect project to do with our Hearts and More tools. It's all fused. This is an easy method for Drunkard's Path, and you can make this project at your own pace. It's really a 4-hour workshop. You can make the quilt in about 8 hours. Okay. When we get together, we also have sit and sew days. We have Facebook Live events like today, and we have product discounts for our members. So if you've enjoyed Applique School and you want to continue to work with me, Ahead of the Curve is a great way to go. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about Ahead of the Curve membership, and then we can take any questions that you have about any form of applique. And I have some Q&A at the end of common questions that people have. So if you don't have specific questions, I'll go through some of those common questions that I hear all the time. Okay, so let's see. Oh, yeah, this is important. I truly believe in a community that just feels good, right? I don't want any negativity entering our community. That means everybody is welcome. I don't care who you are welcome to join our community. Beginner, intermediate, advanced quilter. I don't care the color of your skin, your religion, your anything. Doesn't matter who you are welcome here. So we keep it all about quilting. We do not get personal, and we just don't tolerate any negativity in our group. So I just want to put that out there, because if those things matter to you, this isn't your group. Okay. All right. When you need to escape from the stresses of everyday life, your place is right here with other creative quilters. If you want to express your creativity and have people that appreciate what you do, that can encourage you, that can help you along the way, this is your community. So this is a quote from Cynthia. Cynthia highly recommends membership. Learning so much at your own pace. Great projects. Sue is a wonderful teacher. Thank you, Cynthia. Customer service is fantastic. That's thanks to Penny and Katrina. And Joanne, our shipper, of course. Applique always scared Cynthia, but not anymore. Thank you, Sue. So I love this quote from Cynthia. Cynthia. She was a platinum leaf level member. She's graduated. She knows what she's doing. She's moved on, and now she's making beautiful applique quilts on her own. This was one of her first projects, Magic Carpet Table Runner. Then we have Beth Sullivan. She took one workshop with me at my guild, and then she made this beautiful award-winning quilt. This is an entry-level project. In fact, it's the project I was going to work on today before I rescheduled and put Glue Applique into this time slot. So one of these days on Sewing in Slippers with Sue, we're going to make a quilt very much like this. We're going to do the sea glass quilt. I know I started it with some of you on Sewing in Slippers, and I haven't gotten back to it yet, but I do promise I will get back to that quilt. Okay. Now, again, I have to compare this applique journey with my new obsession with boxing. My daughter got me into the Uppercuts Boxing Club, and I have a monthly subscription there. It is expensive, but anyway, that's beside the point. Why do I pay for a monthly membership for boxing? Because it gives me the motivation to get to class every week. I pay for those classes in advance, so I go, right? Having a membership really is motivation to get you to class, to get you started, to get you on that journey, on that path to success. So my daughter and I go together, which is kind of fun. And I have some great coaches. All right. This particular coach is one of my favorites. This is Adele. He keeps me motivated and moving forward. This guy's a boxer. What does he care that this 57-year-old quilter needs to get in shape? But he does. He cares about each and every one of his students. He doesn't let me give up. One day I just wanted to leave because I was so frustrated, and he got me to stay. He said just the right words to get me to stay. And, he helps me do the things that I never thought I was capable of. Me at a boxing gym with all these boxers, I've never hit a person. We only hit the bags. But you know what? These coaches just pump you up, give you the motivation and the encouragement to do exactly what you need to do. So I love boxing. It's so silly, but I do. And the community at the gym makes it fun, right? I've got all these ladies with me. I say the girls because some of them, like my daughter, she's only in her 30s. We've got kids in their teens. We've got women and men in their 80s in the boxing gym. Everybody's welcome. That type of community, that's what I want here in our quilting world. Okay. So that commitment to coming all the time because you've paid for that membership, so you're going to go. The coaching, somebody to get you over those hard points, to encourage you, to keep you going, and the community. That's also so encouraging and so loving. Those are the same things in my boxing group and in my quilting group. That's what I need to progress toward my goals. And that's what I hope to give you to progress towards your goals. But just like boxing, these skills come with practice, right? You need practice, you need dedication in order to get to the top of the ladder, to get to the top quality applique you can make. So I'm going to encourage you to join our community by offering you some bonuses this week. And our bonus number one, when you join the Ahead of the Curve community during Applique School, I'm going to extend it a little bit because our schedule got messed up. So I'm going to extend it to midnight on Friday. You'll get a coupon for 25% off your next order, right? I had to buy boxing gloves to go boxing. I had to buy wraps for my hands to do my boxing class. You're going to need some tools to do my classes. So you'll get 25% off your next order so that you can get all the tools you need to get started, okay? Then, if you want one of our courses, like our cave clamshells course, one of our bigger quilts, that's a course in and of itself. If you've always wanted to do My Magical Garden or Belle Rouge or the temperature quilt, if you've had one of these quilts on your bucket list, now's the time because I'm going to give you a coupon for 50% off one of the courses in addition to the membership. The benefit of the courses is they're yours for good. You can take 3 years to make that project, or you can do it in 9 months. Doesn't matter. So you can get one extra course at half off when you join the membership. You also get my PDF for my latest book. It's my Quilt Reflections Journal. I think everybody should reflect on the quilts that they make, should have a journal of what they were thinking, what was going on in the world when you made that quilt, maybe little snippets of fabric, maybe a little story about who you're making it for, and that's all in the Quilt Reflections Journal. You'll print this yourself. You'll get the PDF, you can bring it to Staples and have it printed. That way, every time you do a new quilt, you print out those 5 pages and you journal about that quilt so you have a permanent record of your making that quilt. Your family will thank you. And today you're going to be invited to our new member orientation, which happens tomorrow. So that means only if you're joining today, you'll get the invitation for tomorrow. So the new member orientation, all of our current members are welcome, as well as your welcome session. And I'm going to show you around the membership area. Okay. So that's on the 19th. I think it's 6 to 7. I would have to double check that. I want you to gain the skills and the confidence that you need so you can make the quilt of your dreams without having to travel halfway across the country to catch me at a quilt show to teach these skills to you. I want to come right into your sewing room so you can sew in slippers with me and master these applique skills from the comfort of your own home. And once you get it, you can take these techniques to any quilt. So these are some of my graduates, right? They have taken the classes with me. Then they've started designing their own quilts. And all of these beautiful quilts were made by our students. So you are invited. I would love for you to join us in Ahead of the Curve. Now, I want to make beautiful quilts together. So if you want to join us now, go to appliqueschool.com. That's where you can join. Or just go to my website and type in Ahead of the Curve in the search. Put Ahead of the Curve in your cart. Check out at whatever level you're comfortable with. So what if you're a beginner? What do you need to join? Well, Silverleaf members get 2 recorded workshops. So they would need 2 templates to make each of those quilts. You'll need at least 1 Leaves Galore tool and 1 Hearts and More tool to get started with the technique videos as well. So the bare minimum you need is 1 of each tool to get started. You can use your coupon for that, 25% off. So what will you need when you join? Do you need all the templates? Well, technically, in the long run, you're going to want all the templates if you want to do all of the workshops. But if you're just beginning and you just want to get 1 or 2, you can absolutely do that just to get started. Bundles are the way to go. Thank you, Elaine. I appreciate that. The bundles give you a everything you need in one package. So I have a notions bundle for applique. I have a templates bundle for Rotary Cut Applique. That's what Elaine was mentioning. That's a great way to go because you get everything you need in one place. So I'm a beginner. Will I be able to do this? Absolutely. A confident beginner can do this. If you have done a little bit of sewing before, you can do this. Confident beginners would more than likely benefit from starting at the silver leaf level. Go through the techniques first before you start taking the live workshops. That might be a good place to start. If you're ready to dive right into the live workshops where I can actually be there to help you, that would be the gold or the platinum leaf level. Okay. All right. What else? These are some Q&As that I've had in the past. Please put your questions in the comments. Cindy Bridges, good question. I'll be right there with you. If you can't come to the live workshops, what do I do if I can't come to the live workshops? Well, I give 2 live workshops a month. You get to choose one in the platinum and the gold leaf membership level. Choose it anyway, even if you can't come that day in time. After the workshop, I record those workshops and I send out the recording, just like I'm recording this workshop today, and I will send you the recording tomorrow. Now, I do wait a week before sending out the recording for the regular workshops because it takes me time to edit. So if you can't come to the live workshops, maybe silver is for you. Maybe you just need the techniques that you can work on your own. But if you do want to join the gold leaf or the platinum leaf level and you work during the day, and all my workshops are given live during the day, well, that's okay because you'll get the recordings of those workshops. So then it will be on demand for you. You can watch it at any time, rewind, pause, mute, whatever you want to do. What other questions did we have? Can you cancel your membership at any time? Absolutely. You have complete control over your monthly membership. You can up level. So if you start at silver and you want to go to gold to take some live workshops, absolutely, you can do that. You can down level. You start at platinum, but you're not using all those 30 on-demand workshops. Down level to gold, it will still give you 8, and you'll still be able to take a live workshop every month. So you can up level or down level at any time. You can pause. So for 3 months at a time, if you got something going on in your life, we all do. We all have our challenges in life. So for 3 months or up to 3 months, you can pause your membership and then you can start right where you left off without having to start all over again. Okay, so if the prices change, anything changes, you're going to just pause and just start it up again. You can cancel at any time. Okay, it's all under your account and it's all under your control. And I'll be showing you how to do that tomorrow night in orientation. So if you sign up today, you'll get the orientation. Otherwise, you'll get the recording of the orientation. But it's really good to be there so you can ask your questions. Can I cancel my yearly membership at any time? If you purchase a yearly membership, you're getting 12 months for the price of 10. You get 2 months free. So if you cancel your yearly membership, you have the rest of the year to take advantage of that membership, but it won't renew. Okay. If you don't cancel your yearly membership, it's going to renew every year. So you'll be with me for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Many of my founding members have been with me for 3 years. They love it that much. Okay, so there's no refunds on the yearly membership. So if you cancel, I'm not going to prorate that and give you 6 months back if you didn't do it. If you purchase the yearly, make sure you want the full year. Okay, otherwise just do it monthly. If you're not sure, just do monthly until you are sure. Then do the yearly, so you'll get those 2 months free. Okay, that's my recommendation. What other questions do we have? How soon can I start? You can start today. We do have a workshop. I think we've got 2 workshops coming up in July. You could get into those workshops if you started today. You might not want to. You might want to wait and do the technique videos first. But technically, you could start today. You could start watching those technique videos this afternoon. As soon as you purchase it on my website, you are a member. There's no paperwork that has to happen. So you can start accessing right away. Now that coupon, that 25% off coupon will go to you in an email. So you'll get an email for your 25% off coupon. So you could place your order tomorrow for that 25% off. Okay. Start anytime. New member orientation is Wednesday. So you'll get comfortable finding what you need. Okay. How do I join? Go to aheadofthecurve.com. No, sorry. Go to appliqueschool.com or go to my shopping cart and search Ahead of the Curve. Put that membership in your cart and choose the level you want. You can do silver monthly or silver yearly, gold monthly or gold yearly, platinum monthly or platinum yearly. So the gold leaf, just let me give you an example. The gold leaf level is $49 a month. So it's $490 yearly because you pay for 10 months and you get 12. Okay. All right. Super. I think that was all of my Q&A. It's been so much fun here at Applique School with you. I love spending time with my students. As you can probably tell, this is my thing. So I'm going to go to the comments now and see what kind of comments we had. We had some really good questions. Earlier, we had some really good questions, and I know, okay, the question about painting one day and ironing another. Elaine, did you have a comment on that? I'm gonna look through the comments and see if you did. If you then stitch it down, doesn't your stitching show on the other side? Yes, it does, Leslie. Yes, it does. And that is one of the things that I should have put in the pros and cons list. So let me get my samples so you can see that up close. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to take off that screen share because I want you to see this big. Remove that so it's just me. Okay. So yes, absolutely. When I did this quilt first, applique after, I blanket stitched and the blanket stitching shows on the back. That is why I said the glue applique has a lower perceived quality because you don't really want to see your stitching on the back. But for a baby quilt, for a charity quilt, a comfort quilt, who cares, right? So yes, you are going to see your stitching on the back if you are doing quilt first, applique after. If you use a blanket stitch, that matters. If you use a straight stitch, that doesn't really matter because the straight stitching just becomes part of the quilting. So I have stitched my leaves here with a straight stitch. Let me show you that on the front. I've stitched all my leaves with a straight stitch, and that adds to the quilting on the back. So is that a problem? Depends on how you look at it. Okay? Depends on the end use of the quilt. So you always want to have these different techniques in your toolkit so you can pull out the one you need when you need it. In a circumstance when you're showing a quilt at a show, I wouldn't be doing quilt first, applique after. If I'm doing a quilt that needs to be given as a gift really fast, those baby quilts where I can custom make them for that child while they're in the hospital, that's when I'll use the quilt first, applique after method. Can all methods work well on wool? I don't know. I don't do a lot of wool. I think that you should experiment. I think that the powder the liquid thread would work well on wool. I know that the Misty Fuse works well on wool. Hand applique on wool, you don't turn under your edges. So you're just blanket stitching by hand. So yes, the methods all work on wool. However, how well does this glue work on wool? I don't know the answer to that. So you'll have to experiment. But Misty Fuse, yes. Hand applique, yes. Glue applique, I haven't done it, so I can't give you an answer on that. Okay. I love your explanations of each applique technique. Thank you, Terry. That makes me feel so good. Are the glue applique pieces then blanket stitched through all 3 layers or hand stitched through just the top layer? I think we answered that in the last question. The glue applique pieces, I stitch by machine. I never stitch glue applique by hand. It's not going to be as tight and it's not going to hold it down as well as the machine stitching. So that machine stitching will show on the back. Yeah, you saw that in the sample. Membership is worth every penny. Thank you, Debbie West. That is so sweet of you. But the projects are awesome. Thank you. I love that. With the glue applique, do your stitches show on the back? Yep. You've converted me. Oh, thank you. I don't know who that was. All I see is Facebook user. Debbie says you've converted me too. Great support always. Thank you, Debbie. Which class is 24 a month? None of them. 29 per month for the Silver Leaf membership. That gives you access to all of the technique videos for you to learn on your own. It also gives you 2 recorded workshops. Those 2 recorded workshops are for Melissa's quilt and Clever clamshells. So let me show you the 2 projects that you get with all levels, but especially the silver leaf level. You get the Clever clamshells, so you can learn how to do clamshells like the ones that we do on the border of this beautiful clamshell quilt. So Clever clamshells is one of the silver leaf on-demand workshops that you can watch at any time. The second on-demand workshop for silver, gold, and platinum is Melissa's quilt. This is the quilt that I mentioned has been washed 5 times. So the applique really does hold up to washing. Let me bring that up closer so that you can see how well it stands up to washing. Now on the edges, I only did straight stitching. I didn't do blanket stitching. It's frayed a little bit, but it stops at the stitching. I like that edge. It looks like soft edge applique to me. The blanket stitch edges are intact. They are not fraying. They are beautiful. The blanket stitching is very tight, very close. I show you how to do that in your workshops and in the technique videos. The technique video has a section on stitching. So you can watch my detailed stitching videos in the techniques, and then you're also going to get some of that in the workshops. The workshops build on the techniques. So you're going to want to watch those technique videos and practice with those technique videos before you start taking the workshops. Now you can dive into a workshop, but I want you to understand that in the workshops, I assume you've watched the technique videos. So I assume you have a certain skill level with the tools already. Now I do go into great minute detail of every shape. So it's not that you can't do the workshops, but you need practice. It takes time to practice this technique. So I want you to start with the technique videos. Love the membership. Recommend buying the complete bundle. I ended up with all the tools, but with piecemeal buys. I would have saved a lot by getting the bundle and using that 25% off coupon on the bundle. Yeah. See you at Clamshells later. Thank you. We'll be here at 4 o'clock for our Clamshells class. Bundles are the way to go. I think silver membership is silver membership is the $29 a month level. My hands are no longer up for handwork. I machine blanket stitch, usually through the quilt top, and quilting is separate. A couple of times through the entire quilt. Yeah, that's what I do too. Depends on the end result that I'm looking for. If I'm happy with seeing the stitching on the back and it's a charity quilt or a baby quilt, I don't care. But if I want to do it for a show, I'm going to quilt only through the quilt top, and then, I'm going to blanket stitch only through the quilt top, and then I'm going to do my quilting through all 3 layers. I thought we were starting at 2. Where can I get the recording of these lessons? You got the other 2, so you'll get this one. I'll send it out tomorrow. Okay. Which method withstands laundering best? Which withstands the dryer best, or is air drying recommended? Air drying is always recommended because there's less wear and tear on the edges. Hand applique, Fusible applique, they both stand up well to washing. If you've done your hand applique properly, hand applique has withstood the test of time, right? There are old hand applique quilts out there that have been washed many times. However, the fusible machine stitched applique, I think, is the best for hand washing. I bought the ruler bundle. Does that include my monthly subscription? No, it does not. The ruler bundles are just the rulers. So anybody could buy the ruler bundles and work with my patterns, work with my my books, and learn how to do these techniques. The monthly membership is a separate thing altogether. It is not included in your template bundle. That quilt is beautiful. Thank you. I'm not sure which quilt you mean, if it's the one behind me or one of the others that I showed, but thank you so much. The rotary cutting works on wool. Yes, it does. Absolutely. What's the best way to keep the edges from fraying? Stitch with a tight blanket stitch. And I show you that in the technique videos. Okay. You can't afford the membership right now, but you would like to buy the templates. Do I have a free video instructing how to use them? Carolyn. Yes, Carolyn. There is a video that comes with the tools. You also have access to all the videos on my website. It's the same videos. So you don't need the physical DVD, but I send that with the tools just in case you want to pop it into your computer. It's an old-fashioned DVD. You could pop it into your DVD player, but all those videos are right there on my website. So you do not need that video. You can get the basic instructions for all of my tools right there on my website. Okay, no worries. No worries. There's lots of ways to learn. This is a community. It's not mandatory. It's fun. It's wonderful, but it is not the only way you can learn this technique. Could the glue be appliqued prior to quilting? Yes, you can use the glue applique method on just your quilt top. You do not have to do quilt first, applique after. That's just one place where I do use the glue, so that's what I showed today. But no, these techniques are flexible. You can make them your own and do it your own way. Okay. Yeah, just the top layer. Absolutely. I love your clear explanations. Thank you, Cindy. I pride myself on teaching. I've been teaching quilting since I was 16 years old. I love teaching. I've been doing it for a good long time. Let's see, 16, I'm 57, 41 years of teaching. Yeah, that's my thing. I love to teach and I love to give you great explanations. If you like my style of teaching, you're going to love the membership. If the membership isn't for you, you can still grab your tools, watch the videos, learn how to do these techniques. But I would love to see you in the membership. So please come and join us. You'll get the best out of the membership if you join today, because you will get the invitation to tomorrow's orientation. So please come to that to get the most out of your membership. All right, let's talk about any other questions that you have. Feel free to drop them in the comments. I am so excited that you spent this time here with me today. If you are not a regular member of watching Sewing in Slippers with Sue, we generally do this on Tuesdays at 11. There are occasions when I'm out of town where it won't happen. Next week, it will not happen. I'm going to be out of town. But usually I'm here on Tuesdays at 11. I will pick a topic and give you some applique hints. I'll have a guest speaker or I'll have a member spotlight from one of our Ahead of the Curve members. So you're welcome to join us every Tuesday at 11, most Tuesdays at 11 in the morning. That's Eastern time. All right, what else have we got to talk about? I think that we are good. You can see that my members out here in the comments are loving it. They are recommending it to you. They are having fun. Oh, Jane McCary, nice to see you out there. Kathy Peterson, Charlotte, North Carolina, welcome. Okay, I'm just seeing all the names right now, and thank you for your sweet, sweet comments about Gilligan. I'm sorry I had to do that little postponement, but we are back in business here. Although sad, I am remembering Gilligan with great fond memories. And May he rest in peace. Okay. Excellent. It's been so wonderful to spend my morning with you. I will look forward to answering any further questions you have. Just email me, sue@suepellanddesigns.com. If you have further questions, feel free to email me. Your best bet would be to put your questions in this Facebook post. Go to Facebook, find this video that you can watch over and over again, and put your comments on the post. I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling with my mom over the next 3 days, next several days, and I might not get to your emails in quite as efficient fashion as I'd like to. The Facebook would be better because Penny will be watching that for me. We have a customer service representative, Penny, who is there to help you as well. So if I don't answer you, Penny will, and we are so pleased to get to work with you. It's been my pleasure, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. For now, goodbye, everybody, and happy applique. Follow me on Facebook and on YouTube for more of these informative applique videos.